So first question, why do I sometimes find the warmth as coldness?
Very interesting. Why do I experience warmth as coldness? Yeah, it's very interesting. I think very much comes in the context of what we discussed about our reference points, about our way to fixate on experiences. So actually, when you are getting very close to your experience, to your feeling, to your bodily feeling, such as manifesting often in the feeling of warmth, cold, sensation of movement, tickling, and so on. When you start to get very close to that experience, to get closer and closer, actually, the very notion of warmth and cold start also to dissolve, start also to get lost. And it is absolutely possible to have an experience which was initially warmth, or which would be, because when you say warmth as coldness, I mean there is first an experience of warmth. Yes, otherwise you would not call it like this, and this change into an experience of coldness. We can experience the opposite also, an experience of coldness becoming warm. All this is can be due also to an experience of like getting closer, getting deeper into this experience, and actually starting to see that warmth and cold are just labels, but the sensations, the movements, the feeling itself can be labeled as both, or neither, in a way. So this is very interesting experience that I would encourage you very much to explore it even more. There is a lot to discover in, like, it's not as clear-cut as it seems. There is a lot of warmth in irritation, anger. There can be a lot of, you can say, of the opposites which are discovered within the things. We start to discover that actually many seeming contradictions, they are not contradiction on the level of very refined feeling and perception. The more you refine your perception, the more this concept of warm and cold, good and bad, pleasant and unpleasant, pleasurable and painful, they start to dissolve. You can definitely experience, discover ease in the middle of pain. You can definitely discover in intense pleasure, if it is a little bit too long, too much prolonged, pain. It is there, it is already included in it. Yeah? So this illusion of separated things, clear-cut categories, is actually starting to dissolve. And to make such an experience, I don't know if it is due to your meditation practice, or if it's a spontaneous experience also in a moment where your mind relaxes. It can also happen when anytime, yeah? Actually, this is a very clear indication that this concept of cold and warm, they are not reliable. And that is a very, very good, a very, very joyful experience to make. So I cannot ask you if the answer is satisfying. I hope it is. You can write if it's not, and we will move to the next one. Yeah?
So, next question is, whenever I pinch myself with a needle, I feel pain. The pain might vary in the special appearances it takes in each moment. However, I have this pattern there which does not seem to vary over time. Is the pattern still to be regarded as a relative truth? More generally, what defines as absolute versus a relative truth?
Wow, that's a deep question. Can you read just a little bit again this part? It says, so pinching with a needle,
yes.
There is pain, and then just after that, what was the second part of the sentence?
The pain might vary
in intensity.
Yes, in the special appearances it takes in each moment.
Okay, so it's changing. It's okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we are still with the same topic very much. Huh? It's very, very fitting with the previous question. So the experience of pain, yeah, definitely varies, and if you start to look closer, actually there is never never the same experience, even if you repeat the same movement with a needle. It is definitely still part of relative experience, relative truth. Anything that involves somebody putting a needle somewhere, anything that involves the concept of pain as opposed to the concept of pleasure, as opposed to the concept of well-being, automatically we are in the relative, in the world of the relative, in the world of the conventions. You can say in the world of duality, the very concept of pain, you cannot have the idea of pain, the experience of pain, if you don't have a mind in a dualistic set. That means that in order to have this experience of pain as pain, you need to have a comparison taking place in the mind. It is going very quick. It's not like you can think, oh yes, this pain is very, very unpleasant compared to my normal feeling or compared to an experience of pleasure. No, not like this. It is totally spontaneous. It's automatic. You can say it's like the speed of light. It's happening. It's a deeply ingrained habit, and it's a habit of, you can say, categorizing. It's the habit of duality. So it's like every experience that we make, every perception is made with our whole history, the whole life, at once. It doesn't take any time. It's like you are carrying also, okay, the Buddhists say that there is more than one life, so also many lifetimes of experiences. But we don't need to agree with that enough with this life, yes? It's like the process of perception is called actually by many of the great Buddhist masters a process of elimination of what it is not. That means that to have an experience of pain, there is a very, very quick experience of comparison taking place in the mind, and you compare with all your field of experience, the different levels of pain, the different levels of pleasure, and this will be categorized in pain. But you have in the background of mind pleasure. You have the opposite in the background. You have all the nuances between pleasure and pain in the background. So you have your whole dualistic set which is there in order to experience it as pain. When you get very deep into the experience, very close, so when you become completely one with the pain, then it becomes possible, so to speak, to become that experience, and then it's like you cannot watch it from outside anymore. You cannot experience it as an observer, as a witness. And then this experience actually cannot even be called pain anymore. It would not be qualified. Your mind could not even seek it in terms of pain and pleasure. Yeah? So this is, you can say, how meditation or getting closer to every experience is a liberating practice. There is definitely in every experience, even the painful ones, the possibility to discover freedom, the possibility to discover non-duality. But for that, we have to have the courage to feel so close and without a completely non-judgmental mind, a complete confidence, and then it's like to fall into it, to become one with it. Then it will be what we call the ultimate truth, the ultimate experience. And this ultimate experience, even if we name it with the word ultimate, is not expressible with the usual terms of the language. So you would not even call this pleasure or freedom as opposed to pain. In the Vajrayana we call this great bliss because the idea is that it goes beyond pain and pleasure. It is not depending on the conditioning of pain and pleasure. It is not depending on something else. Yeah? And it can be found in both pain and pleasure, in any conditioned experience. So the so-called ultimate is actually the deep understanding of the relative. Yes, whatever experience arises, which is usually arising in a conceptual frame, pain and pleasure, good and bad, nice and not nice, and then by staying within, going deep within that, we are discovering, you can say, the inexpressible, right in the middle of it. So the ultimate truth and the relative truth are not separate. This is one thing. It is like every experience is both, or neither. Yeah, this is actually, every experience is that unexpressible state. So as long as we are not getting close enough, then there will be still some kind of comparison. Then we are still somehow manipulating and comparing. Yeah? So that's, in a nutshell, how it works. Next question.
How is the observer different from the experience, and how can one put it on practice?
It is such a pity that you are not here with us to ask this question, because I would definitely ask you first. You're the one. Fantastic, I have her here. So how is the observer different from the experience? What would you say?
Shall we give it the mic? No.
I can repeat your words. So Lisa is on. I mean, because when you ask the question like this, it like supposes that you see a difference. It's like, do you see a difference yourself, first of all? Do you experience a difference?
Well, this is why I was asking the question, because there's something, I guess there's not much of a difference.
So exactly, what is your experience when you feel into observer and when you feel into experience? What difference do you actually experience through? What experience do you actually feel? What difference, do you actually feel?
There's a certain way of experiencing things, like, let's call it awareness or something, but it always comes along with the experience itself. So it's not separate from, there's no experience whatsoever without the awareness, and there's no awareness without any kind of experience. So I cannot.
Yes, but now you are talking about awareness and experience. Your question was about observer and experience.
Yeah, I mean the observer.
You mean the observer?
The observer
yes.
is this what I call awareness. This.
Okay, so
what is experiencing the experience.
Okay, so it's good. It's good. It clarifies a little bit already for me. When we talk about observer and awareness, normally we talk about two different things, because there is such a thing as awareness without observer. Mm-hmm. The awareness does not automatically involve an observer. This is actually what I was describing before. The experience of non-duality is an experience of awareness without observer. Yeah. So now, if we stay with your question, observer and experience, well, for me, it is simply two different words for the same thing. Yeah, just using two different words for the same thing. One is more talking in terms of subject, observer, and the one we say experience, it sounds a little bit more abstract, but actually the experience is an experiencer. There is no experience without experiencer, and to say experience or observer, same thing, no difference. If you look into the mind, impossible to see a difference. We are just using different words. Yeah? So check that, and if you see any difference, then this is where the instructions would come, so complementary instructions would come to help you to see, okay, let's check more precisely, what is really then the difference? Where is it? We are very much in the realm of what we call vipassana, like introspection into the nature of our experience, into the nature of mind. Yeah? We are also exploring our words, the way we think about the mind, the way we conceive our experience. And we start to see that our different words for that, well, they might seem sometimes like different categories, but actually, if you look closer, the feeling of difference, the feeling of separation dissolves as well. Yeah? So, the most classic question that we find is more like, is there a difference between the thinker and the thought? But this one now I'm asking to all of you, yes? Yeah? So we would say like this, is there a difference between the thinker and the thought? Is there some kind of container and some kind of content? Yeah? The thinker and the thought. Yeah? So all this is deep investigation conducive to freedom. Yeah? There was a second part to your question?
How to practice it, or how to...
This is how to practice it. This is how to practice it. So this is exactly how to practice it, like checking all of our notions and concepts and ideas about the mind and see what is actually making sense in this dimension of ungraspable flow. What can survive? What kind of concept can survive that? And we really have to make the work, even if we have the idea, okay, we know all of our concepts, they are dualistic, they have all to go, they are all inadequate. We know this intellectually, but actually we are still hanging on to them. We are still very much believing in their truth. Yeah? Emotionally, at least, if not intellectually. So we need to go so deep that all these ideas are uprooted in the realm of the unexpressible, one after the other. And this is the practice of insight.
So it's about reflecting deeper and...
It's about applying contemplation first, so examining first, but then going into the phase of meditation there, going into the depths of your being, and just starting to see that you cannot maintain such a concept. It collapses the moment you are closer enough to this dimension, yeah, to this depth. So, but we need to do this experience again and again, and in every area of our being. Everything has to be covered because we have so many of these structures, illusory structures, based on language and based on habits, yeah? Both. So that is the practice of insight meditation, and we will definitely give more instructions about this in the later talks, in the later teachings coming in the next weeks. Next one? Is there a next one? Yeah?
Do you have any idea why we are scared from the spaciousness?
Why do we have fear of the spaciousness? Well, very much it's a lot out of habit, you know. It's a lot out of habit. It's like we have created a nest, a very cozy nest, even in our usual limited experience. So although it is somehow uncomfortable, because in the background of this experience we have this kind of thorn in the foot, we have this kind of feeling of pain there, of not complete satisfaction, not complete ease, and not really using our potential fully. But somehow we have made this state quite cozy. We have become used to it. So it's like the moment you are regaining the dimension where all of this, where you lose ground, where all of this stops to make sense, or stops to make such clear sense, then there is a sense of panic. There is a fear automatically. Yeah? Fear comes from the unknown. And we are afraid because we don't know very well this ungraspable state, this spacious state. And so the paths and the practice of meditation consist of regaining this inheritance, like realizing again that this is our true home, that the other home that we have made is illusory first, is crumbling all the time, totally unreliable, and is a source of suffering. So all of this is becoming, with the practice and with the time, more and more obvious, and we replace this habit of our previous home by the habit of a new home. Of course, it's a ever-shifting home. It's not a home with a fixed location. It's a home in the middle of nowhere. But it is very full. It is very full. It's full of life. It is richness, which does not need a reference point. So the fear comes out of the unknown, the lack of wisdom, you can say, the lack of knowing. Yeah, and that is luckily something we can reverse. Yeah, we can reverse. We have to fall back into it again and again, many times. And whenever the fear comes, take it as an encouragement. Whenever the fear comes, see it as the door to insight, the door to freedom, because this is what it is. If you would be actually much more stubborn and fixed in your ideas, you would have no fear. To experience fear, you need already to be quite close to your experience. You need to open up to experience fear. So fear is an excellent indication, I'm afraid to say. Fear is a reason for us in a retreat center, usually when people come up with their fears and so on, is a reason for us to rejoice, because this is the first step before deeper freedom. And for most practitioners I have seen, and I'm sure Tilman would say same, and you have seen many more than I, this is a kind of necessary step. There are maybe some very, very fortunate cases where there is a possibility to go directly into this basic ground, this spaciousness, without resisting at all, and then, okay, just functioning from there, never going back to the illusory home. But if this ever happens, it's very rare. So we need to take the time to create this new habit of no reference point. Next. It's coming now? Uh-huh.
How can you explain time and distance? In this context, I mean the distance for now to the awareness, from your presence to what's going on around you.
The question is not. I'm not sure exactly. I would need to ask you a little bit more. Mm-hmm. So time and space, you don't seem to be asking this in general terms, like describing this as a kind of in the context of physics, but you're asking as an experience in the context of meditation, in the context of practice, awareness practice.
Your inner focus too.
My inner focus to time and space. Okay, I can try to go with that. If there is any more precision, you tell me, but basically, time and space are the perfect example of reference frames. So, if we talk, I'm not competent to talk about this in terms of physics, because a lot has been done there. But in terms of an inner experience, in terms of an experience of awareness, time and space are very much simply experienced as conceptual limitations. That means that when you go to this dimension of rich and graspable openness, it is not possible to experience time and space anymore. This is why we call that dimension timeless wisdom, timeless awareness. Yes, it was because in order to experience time, you need to have a frame. In order to experience space, you need a reference point. In order to place the Earth, you need a solar system with other planets. In order to place the solar system, you need other reference point in the universe. If there is only space, only spaciousness and graspable spaciousness, how would you have a reference point? How can you have an absolute reference point in space if you don't make some artificial reference point? Where are you in space if you don't mean compared to something? You can only be located compared to something. Yes? If you are on Earth, it is compared to other planets. It is compared to other systems in the universe. Yes? If you locate you there. So you need to make a map. Yes? In order to make a map, you need at least 2 points. Yes? 1 point in the middle of nowhere? Well, it doesn't know where it is. It cannot know where it is. It doesn't make sense. Actually, it's not even a point. Yeah? That very concept does not make sense. Same with time. It's the same experience. You need to have a feeling. Now we are talking about psychological time. You need to have a feeling of duration. You need to have a feeling of duration. This feeling of duration, short or long, can only be experienced in comparison. Yes? How can you say that an experience is short if you don't think about long in comparison? How can you say that this is a small object? Absolutely. Small compared to what? Small compared to the table, yes. But compared to an ant, it's huge. So to make the statement, this is a small object, I have to say, what are my reference points to say this, so that it makes sense? I cannot say this, it is a small object in the absolute sense. Right? So, going to that dimension of psychological groundlessness, then all these notions, all these ideas, they dissolve. And the experience of awareness without watcher cannot reference a time and a space. You cannot say how long it lasts. When you are entering that dimension of complete letting go, you cannot say how long it lasts. When you come out of it and then you check the watch and you remember this and that, then you can say, okay, there was such and such a time, but while you are in it, you cannot reference time. You cannot reference a location anywhere. There is no sense of body and mind. There is no sense of outer and inner. And this is not a nothingness, on the other hand. This is not a black hole. It is very, very, very vivid and alive. So this is very important to understand. You have more?
Yes. But without space, there are no experiences of awareness.
Well, without the concept of space, you can have a lot of experiences of awareness. Yeah? Space is just another word. It's a word that is very fitting as a comparison for mind, because mind is space-like, is sky-like. Mind has that dimension. But it is not just space, it is dynamic space, it is vivid space. And therefore even the comparison with space is artificial, it is limited. The true experience of mind is not just space. It is just the best we can do when we try to talk about it. Yeah? And definitely you can have experiences of awareness without any notion of space left. Definitely. Yeah? So this is, of course, we are like dealing with advanced questions. I definitely don't qualify maybe also to give the best answers. But in my experience, it is possible to become free, completely free of any even feeling of spaciousness. Yeah, you can say the feeling of spaciousness is still a transition between your attention. When you enter relaxation and the mind starts to open, then there is a feeling of spaciousness. But when you go deeper into relaxation, then you cannot qualify this in these terms anymore. You cannot describe it in these terms anymore. Yeah? Let's say these are like metaphors that help to go in that direction. And the great masters of the past have tried to give us many, many hints how it is, how it feels, and they have used for this reason many of these metaphors of space, but you should be very sure that they are still conceptual and they are still limited, and they are still not the experience of non-referential awareness. So, time to conclude, yeah? Thank you very, very much. We will continue today at 2:30 with Tillman, and we might make again a question sessions and a little bit later. Yeah, I will see. Please ask any question you have. It's very interesting to exchange with you. Thank you very much. Have a nice lunch and a nice day. Bye-bye.